What's happening? I'm Nate, and this is the Real Life Conversations and Experiences podcast, where we have conversations and share experiences that can benefit a man or a woman. Now, this episode is about the 8 dimensions of wellness and how they're interconnected and can negatively or positively impact each other. So, with that being said, we're going to jump right into it. For my undergraduate degree studies, after I completed my coursework, I was required to take some electives. And one of the classes that I was presented with that I could take was wellness. So I took it because I was already on like a physical fitness kick, and I just wanted a more in-depth knowledge about wellness so I can kind of incorporate it into my physical fitness routine. So what the 8 dimensions of wellness are is emotional, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational, physical, spiritual, and social. And what the class taught was how an individual can use these 8 dimensions of wellness to create a framework and take that would allow you to take a holistic approach to the overall well-being of the individual, which would then lead to a longer lifespan. So the emotional dimension of the wellness emphasizes the importance of managing your emotions and coping with stress. So it kind of entails being aware of why you feel a certain way and what course of action you should take to rectify feeling like that. The environmental aspect emphasizes the importance of creating a healthy environment that stimulates growth and also having access to nature. It could be something as simple as creating a nice vibe or ambiance in your home and also placing yourself outside in environments where you're in a park or on a trail wide experiencing nature. The financial aspect emphasizes the importance of making financially sound decisions and avoiding situations where you will be in a financially stressed situation, which should ultimately lead to financial stability. So you should be thinking about where you want to be financially like 10 years from now. The intellectual aspect, dimension rather, of wellness deals with learning something new every day and just thinking creatively. The occupational aspect of wellness pertains to finding meaning in your work. Choosing a career where the work you will be doing is something that you like to do so it won't feel like work. The physical aspect of wellness pertains to eating properly and getting the proper amount of rest and just basically taking care of your body. The social aspect or the social dimension of wellness pertains to maintaining quality relationships with individuals. Like, don't surround yourself with people that are yes men or yes women. You want to surround yourself with people that's going to challenge you and call you out on your shit. The spiritual aspect of wellness pertains to tapping into a higher power and, looking at life like it's bigger than you and finding meaning and purpose in it. So, an example of how like the 8 dimensions of wellness can be affected is like, say for instance someone abruptly loses their job. Like emotionally that's gonna cause stress because now you don't have any income coming in, you're gonna worry about paying your bills. So you're gonna experience anxiety and stress. So that's gonna affect you emotionally. Like environmentally, you're gonna also be stressed because you don't know how you're gonna pay your mortgage or your rent. You don't have any money coming in. Financially, you're gonna definitely be stressed because your source of income has been cut off. Intellectually, you're not gonna be able to think. You know, Occupationally, you're not gonna have a job. Socially, you're gonna be embarrassed and irritable. You're not gonna want to be around people. And spiritually, your soul is gonna be disrupted because you just don't know how you're gonna make it. And another way it can be affected, another example would be if someone, let's say for instance, someone was engaging in hookup culture, right? Like emotionally, they might feel a sense of guilt or rejection after engaging in these encounters. Like a guy, was dealing with a woman he may have met on the first night and took her out and had sex with her. He might look at her like afterwards like she's a whore, and she might feel rejected or guilt from doing what she did. Like he physically, men and women who engage in this type of behavior Like you're exposing yourself to an increased risk of catching a STD and just putting yourself in a position where it's an unplanned pregnancy. So it affects like different aspects or different dimensions. These examples in your behaviors. Like you don't really think about it at the end of the day how the decisions you make affect your overall wellness. So I came across a couple of videos that I'm gonna play for you guys that kind of pertains to creating soul ties and hookup culture. And so I'm gonna leave the comments sections open so you guys can kind of give feedback as to whether or not you think the presenters of these two videos gave you some insight or made you aware of some things people just don't think about when they engage in hookup culture or create soul ties with people.
Vicky, we live in this hookup culture where much of our society, they think that they can just go on one night stands and just have consequence-free relationships, sexual relationships.
Well, it's interesting because that's a lie that abounds, that, we've come through the media and other things to believe there's no consequence to sex. And as long as you're contracepting or whatever, it's all fine. But we don't really understand how it is our bodies work. We need to recognize, for instance, that we as women undergo profound changes when we have sex with a male, that there are many things that change. It takes our body 6 months to make the adaptation to the sperm of our male partner. Because before that, we are in an autoimmune reaction. Our immune cells are testing. What is this? Is this an infection? What is it? Our body comes to conclude that this is our sexual partner and now has made an adaptation. The reality is that this allows us women to be without consequence in terms of when we conceive children with this male, our body recognizes that this is with our partner. We carry cells from every child we ever conceive, so we carry the DNA of our partners the rest of our lives. It's an interesting question. If I've had multiple partners and perhaps conceptions with multiple partners, that what might that mean to my body in terms of the immune system? Because I will now literally be carrying the genetic material of my partners contained in my children. We don't know what the long-term consequences of that are. The sperm has many antigens on it. And again, we think this is kind of neutral. We women have bodies that are acidic in chemistry, and males are alkaline. But what's interesting is that the last thing that happens with sperm production is there's a coating of vitamin C that's put on the sperm that allows it to survive in our woman bodies. So we make this adaptation to our partner. Sperm has these antigens, and interestingly, in men, if there should be a vasectomy or damage, what we've discovered is that in the male body, sperm and blood don't ever meet each other if it's healthy. When there's damage, for the first time, the sperm and the blood meet, and it sets off an autoimmune reaction in the male. It's designed to do that, but this can lead to health issues for the male. Vasectomies are promoted as, safe, not a problem. But in reality, there are a few very brave doctors who have written about the fact that the male who has had a vasectomy may now develop autoimmune disorders, arthritis, some other sorts of diseases. There's also the question, of course, of where does the sperm go, which can create some very uncomfortable things for the male. But there's more, again, also for the male. The reality is that seminal fluid, which we think of as kind of a carrier, it just kind of gets the sperm where it needs to go, is in fact biochemically very active. There are more than 30 different compounds that are contained in the seminal fluid. Different kinds of sugars, things like zinc, which would enhance our, as women, autoimmune system so that we might not contract diseases from pathogens that would be present in intercourse. All these different kinds of substances. There are also many, many hormones that are there. Luteinizing hormone, we think that's a woman hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone, that's a woman hormone. 13 kinds of prostaglandins. Some other things like dopamine are there. Why? Because we women absorb that material and we're changed forever. Every time we have intercourse with someone, if we absorb any of that seminal fluid, it's in our system for at least 15 hours. We're changed in a very real and concrete way by this sexual intimacy that's there. Furthermore, the brain chemistry in both men and women is triggered with sexual intimacy. And we believe that because I say this is just a sexual encounter for pleasure, I'm not going to be changed, that it works. Our brain never gets the message that this has no consequence. The assumption on the part of our body is that sexual intimacy always has consequences, always has meaning. And as soon as we have this intimacy with this person, we trigger brain chemistry. We trigger, for instance, oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone both in men and women. There are other feedback systems there that make the brain feel good. Men, in particular, get vasopressin. This is a male hormone. We women have a little, but it's predominantly male. And when we have sexual intimacy with someone, what happens to the male is this hormone now makes him have a preference for this female that he just had sex with. Hooking up, the sense that it doesn't matter, is physiologically an impossibility.
So yeah, that was very insightful, especially that last part where she said, when a man has intimacy, sex with a woman, he, develops a preference for that woman. I find myself to be that particular statement to be true for me because I deal with women one at a time. So if I choose to engage in a courtship with you, I'm physically attracted to you. So once we have sex, I'm going to develop a preference for you. So I thought she was spot on with that analysis. Now I'm going to play one more video and then give her a little more feedback about what was being discussed in the video.
People don't recognize how sacred sex is. They tend to think it's just something that you do when you come of age and it's enjoyable and it's for having children. It's a lot more than that. And so we have lost Western civilization. I always refer to it as they have lost the true meaning of what the sexual union is. It is a sacred union between the masculine and the feminine principle in order for both to achieve levels of spiritual enlightenment. So that has now been removed. That's a knowledge that has been removed. So we're just basically just operating on the base levels of enjoyment and sensual attachment. Now, when you have sexual intercourse with another person, there is an exchange that surpasses mental, emotional, and physical. That exchange is difficult to quantify, but consider this. If you are in my field, my physical proximity to me, you are going to now be in my auric or energy field, and I in yours. There is going to be a mixing of our energy fields. Our energy fields don't only consist of vibrations, but they also consist of intelligence. They consist of trauma. They consist of emotions, and they consist of karma. So when we mix with someone, we literally are taking on their energetic field. We're taking on their karmic. And when I say karmic, I'm talking about ancestral, I'm talking about lineage, thousands of years of energy. And I'm also talking about ancestral. I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to say it because it's a reality in the spiritual realm. There are ancestral curses that stay with people. They don't know that they're having them. You know, in Jamaica, we'll say, boy, that person's salt. No, it's because they have a lot of heavy karma from their family lineage. It can be cleansed if people are aware of it and then seek to have it addressed. So when you have sexual intercourse, you're having all of that. How do you undo it? That's difficult because when there is intercourse, there's also a soul tie. So this is why breaking up is so difficult. It's traumatic, it's emotional, because it wasn't just a friendship or a relationship or a sexual interaction. It was actually a soul tie. And so it takes a bit of undoing. The recommendation, therefore, is that you minimize the number of partners just to preserve your energy field and to minimize the amount of clutter and debris of an emotional, spiritual, mental nature that you can be taking in. You know, there's also, I'm going to give a good example. You know how when you go to the fast food store and you go to the soda fountain and you have lemon and you have orange, you have grape, you have Pepsi and you have, yeah? Some children just go and they just get, is it a good drink? Yeah, it tastes all right. What color is it? It probably is like a murky color. It's okay. It's fine, but it's not the same as having a pure orange soda or pure grape or pure, you know what I mean? It's a fruit punch that is not so nicely melded. So the idea is to keep yourself pure as possible. Keep your energy pure. And to seek a partner that has a similar energetic pattern or imprint as yours. And we've all seen our friends at one time or the other end up with someone that is so divergent, but not in a opposites attract cute kind of way, but in a destructive way where you can see where one is going to be pulled down energetically by the other. Mm-hmm. My reference to the ancestral curse kind of thing is this. Have you ever seen a couple get together and everything was fine for one of them, and the minute they got together with the other person, every single thing started to go wrong in their life, in their career, in their health, in their relationships, in every way? Sometimes it's as simple as that particular interaction or those multiple interactions. So we have to take care. And then there's people who will say, oh, I know a lot of people and they have multiple, and they're fine. They appear fine in the physical, but in the mental, emotional, and spiritual realm, they are a mess. And it's important to emphasize here that a lot of the people we see around, and the physical is beautiful and everything is beautiful, and even the financial looks like they are flying on cloud 11. All that glitters is not gold. We don't know what's happening on the inside, and we don't know what's happening at the mental, emotional, spiritual levels.
Now that was very insightful. You know, the way she was talking about, especially the example she gave with the fountain machine and how you can mix up the different cokes and it might taste good. But yeah, I had a coworker, and he kind of participated in this type of lifestyle where he engaged in casual sex with a lot of women, and ultimately it cost him his marriage. But he would tell me particularly about this one woman he was involved with who was also married. But she was in a situation with her husband to where she didn't want to divorce him because they purchased a home together and he wasn't in a good position. She was the breadwinner and she would have to pay him off, right? So they had some kind of agreement to where they would just turn a blind eye to what each other was doing. So he involved himself with his woman. Ultimately he lost his marriage, but he continued to involve himself with this woman who eventually he fell in love with, but she refused to leave her marriage. And later on, he found out that she had multiple partners that she was dealing with. He also had multiple partners. And, I would have conversations with him, and he would just say, man, I just can't leave her alone. Like, I couldn't understand why he was still involved himself with her. He was like making six figures, right? But he just couldn't leave this woman alone. So he got to the point where he really started doing sucker shit. Well, one time he told me he put a GPS on her car, and she was unaware of it, and he followed her, and she was out with another dude, and he confronted her, and an argument ensued, and the guy didn't do anything, but she got in her car and kind of like sped off, and he was trying to stop, and she ran over his foot and broke his foot, and he eventually chased him down, rammed her car in her back. She backed into him. He was eventually jailed and hospitalized because the foot was broken. But after all that, he still got out and ended up messing with her. He continued to be involved with her, and she continued to be involved with him, and still, the woman still had multiple partners, and he had the little partners he was dealing with when she didn't want to mess with him, right? So what happened was she wasn't aware that he had the GPS on her car, so he did it again. One night, he just trailed her, but this time he saw him going in the house. He saw her go in the house with the dude, so he kind of like forced his way in the house and got into like a scuffle with the dude and ended up killing him. And he's in jail right now because of that. The point I'm trying to make is it's real consequences from creating these soul ties with all these different people, and that goes with the dimension of wellness, with affiliating with quality people, like she just said, Ms. Herlock just said, shout out to I Never Knew TV. That's a content creator. They create dope content for posting that video, and that's what she was saying. Like, you can align yourself with certain people and they can bring you down. Now, by no means am I judging anyone. This podcast is about just like sharing information and highlighting behavior patterns and behavior that's fully on display that can negatively or positively impact the overall quality of a person's life as life proceeds. We're not judging anyone, but I'm also trying to highlight how this particular behavior is not confined to like a particular age group. The example I gave with my coworker, they were over 40 years old. But it's also an indication how somebody could be chronologically 40 years old, but mentally have the intellect of an 18-year-old. So what I'm saying, ultimately, guard your heart, man. And don't fuck with nobody who ain't worth it. So that's going to end this episode of Real Life Conversations and Experiences. Y'all be cool.